There are a few stories from St. John Bosco's time in the seminary at Chieri that show how he opposed the loose customs of his day. 3 cautionary tales which give guidelines for how a priest or a future priest should behave. His behavior in these difficult situations show a spirit of sanctity that should definitely be imitated today. Let's go. The Miracles and Prophecies of St. John Bosco, a project of America Needs Fatima. I'm your host, Matthew Miller. Subscribe for new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. After he had made up his mind to enter the seminary, John Bosco prepared himself for the great day when he would don the clerical habit. He prepared himself with a novena and other devotions. Then, on that day, October 25th, 1835, he received Holy Communion. He said, "When the pastor told me to remove my civilian clothes with the words, 'Exuat te Dominus veterem hominem cum actibus suis,' may the Lord strip you of the old man with his deeds, I said to myself, how much old stuff there is to get rid of. O Lord, destroy all my bad habits." When later he gave me the collar, he said in Latin, "May the Lord clothe you with a new man who was created according to God in righteousness and the sanctity of truth." I was deeply moved and said to myself, "Yes, my God, grant that in this moment I may truly put on a new man, that from this moment I truly begin a new life fully in accordance with your divine will. O Mother of God, be my salvation." After the church ceremony, the pastor wanted to have a little celebration. He said he would take me to the annual fiesta in honor of St. Raphael. He meant well, but his invitation was not at all to my liking. After weeks of preparation for a day I had so fervently hoped for, it didn't make any sense for me to sit at dinner among strangers, eager to laugh, eat, drink, and have fun. People who, for the most part, cared only for a good time. I would have felt out of place. What could such people have in common with me who that very morning had donned the cloth of holiness? "Isn't that a fiesta?" I asked respectfully. "That's precisely why they've invited me," replied the pastor. "Come along." I knew he was very fond of me, and I didn't want to displease him. Still, I didn't like it. During a fiesta or at a noisy banquet, there's always some spiritual danger. I attended all the church services, sat down at the banquet, saw all the goings-on of the fiesta, but for me, it was a very melancholy day. Father Cinzano noticed it. On the way home, he asked me why I had been so quiet and pensive on a day like that. Candidly, I replied that the religious ceremony of the morning was not at all in keeping with the rest of the day. And I added, seeing priests overindulging in drink and clowning around, I almost felt an aversion for my vocation. I would never have thought them capable of such behavior. Rather than become like them, I would sooner lay this cassock aside and remain a good layman, or else I would withdraw completely from the world and become a Carthusian or Trappist monk. "That's the way the world is," replied the pastor. "We must take it as it is. You have to see evil in order to recognize it and avoid it." I remained silent, but in my heart I said to myself, I'll never again attend any of these fiestas except for the church services. I entered the seminary on October 30th, 1835. My small wardrobe was ready. All my relatives were happy, and I even happier. An unsuspecting seminarian may often find himself in grave danger without even being aware of it. This happened to me on a village feast day. An uncle of mine invited me to his house for a banquet. I didn't want to go, but he insisted I was needed for the church services. So I accepted, served Mass, and helped out with the singing. Then the banquet started. Things went all right for a while, but as soon as the guests began to feel the effects of the wine, they began to talk rather too freely. As a seminarian, I wouldn't stand for that, and so I tried to remonstrate, but in vain. So I got up from the table and took my hat ready to leave. My uncle wouldn't let me. Thereupon, someone else began to talk even more offensively and insulted the others at the table. Things went from bad to worse. There were shouts and threats amid a loud din of china and silver. There was nothing else to do but to get out of there as fast as possible. When I got home, I firmly renewed the resolution I had already made, namely, to keep away from worldly affairs to avoid falling into sin. Oh, how true are the words of the Holy Spirit! Headache, Bitterness and disgrace is wine drunk amid anger and strife. More and more, wine is a share for the fool. It lessens his strength and multiplies his wounds. Rebuke not your neighbor when wine is served, nor put him to shame when he is merry. Use no harsh words with him, and distress him not in the presence of others. From the book of Sirach. Under such circumstances, one must either go along with the crowd or be silent. In that case, it's better to stay home. An equally unpleasant episode, but of a different nature, occurred at Crovelia. Another uncle of mine, Matthew, invited me there for the feast of St. Bartholomew, the local patron saint. Again, I was able to help at church services, sing, and play the violin. This had been my favorite instrument, but I had already given it up. Everything went well in church. The dinner was at my uncle's house, since he was the chairman of the festivities. So far, nothing objectionable had occurred. The pastor also was at table with us. After dinner, the guests asked me if I would play something for them, and I declined. But they insisted, saying that they simply had to hear my masterly performance. I replied that I had left my violin at home. "That's easily remedied," one of the guests interjected. "So-and-so right here in the village has one. I'll get it and then you'll play." In no time, he was back with it. I still tried to get out of it. "Well, let's do this," one of them said. "You be the soloist, and you'll play the accompaniment." Fool that I was, I didn't have the courage to refuse, so I began playing and continued for quite a while. Suddenly I heard whispering and shuffling of feet as though many people had gathered. I went to the window and saw a crowd dancing gaily in the front yard to the sound of my music. Words cannot express the indignation that seized me at the sight. "What?" I cried to the assembled guests. "Do you expect me to promote this kind of entertainment after I have spoken so often against it? Never. Here, take this violin at once back to its owner. Thank him and tell him I don't need it anymore." I then got up and went home. I took my violin, trampled on it, and smashed it into 1,000 pieces. Never again did I play such an instrument, not even at church services. I had made a solemn promise, and I kept it. Later, I taught others how to play it, but without ever handling it. These episodes really taught me a lesson. From that time on, I gave myself with stronger resolve to a life aloof from worldly pursuits. I became firmly convinced that anyone wishing to devote himself truly to God's service must give up all worldly amusements. True, such amusements are often not sinful, but one thing is certain. Worldly dress, speech, and behavior are always a danger to virtue, especially the delicate virtue of chastity. If you'd like to hear St. John Bosco's teaching on modesty, just click on the video above me here. Thank you all so much for watching. God bless you, and Our Lady keep you.